Les agradecemos su participación en este webinar muchas gracias al profesor doctor Saifur Rahman, que nos va a hablar sobre cómo escribir un paper efectivo. Nos pareció un tema muy interesante lo que él nos propuso, porque muchos, tanto de la industria como en la academia, es un tema que siempre ha estado de los principales cuando queremos publicar nuestros resultados. Mi nombre es Ramón León, yo soy el presidente de la Sociedad de Potencia y Energía de la IEEE en Colombia. Sé que tenemos participantes de otras partes de Latinoamérica, les agradezco mucho su presencia también. Y como este tipo de seminarios, mucho más vamos a realizar durante este semestre, y todos tratando de ser abiertos a toda Latinoamérica, y lo estamos haciendo con diferentes países liderando. Sin mucha más introducción, le doy la palabra al profesor Saifur. Saifur, thank you very much for acceding to give us this talk to us. It's a topic that we understood very interesting, not only for the academy, but also from the industry. Several of us are in the industry, and we have also the same questions about how to write an effective paper. So
very good.
It's up to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me share the screen now. Okay. Full screen. Can you see my full screen now, Ramon?
Yes, sir.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm going to talk about for 35 minutes or so. Then we'll stop, take questions, and have some discussion. So you see the title of my paper presentation now, how to write an effective technical paper. This is the key word, effective. That means if you write it the way I'm talking about, it will be accepted in a journal or a conference. That's effective, means it is useful. Otherwise, you can write many papers, don't get accepted, so it doesn't help. So this is the key word, effective technical paper. Now, if I can go forward, this is my short bio. I have given this talk for IEEE before. This is coming from that page, so it doesn't matter. I just ignore that. But I want to keep this in front of you. If you want to see the PDF version later on, you know the reference. That's why. Fine. This talk I'm giving to you now was given by me at IEEE Power Society webinar sometime last year. And this is also available if you cannot follow it today, or if you're missing it, if you're going to see it, go to the IEEE PES website and go to the resource center. The audio, video, all of that is available from the IEEE PES Resource Center, just as a reference. Okay, fine. Who is the audience? I gave this talk in India some time back. After the talk was finished, I was getting down. All the students and young scholars came to me and asking a lot of questions. I hope you'll have a lot of questions as well when I finish this evening for the Columbia audience. Now, this is the question I get all the time. I am talking about people like you. There are two reasons why people write questions, or I ask them, why are you writing the paper? Are you writing the paper for the sake of writing a paper? All the university faculty members have to write a paper because they are evaluated based on their technical publications. That's one. Or sometimes you want to show how others can benefit from your work. Suppose you are a senior industry engineer, you have done a lot of work in your life, and you want to leave something for the next generation. You write a good paper, which is explanatory, which can be used by many people in the industry. In fact, for that very reason, I started a new journal of PES, online journal, called IEEE Transactions on Power and Energy Systems. It is available today, and I'll give you an example later on. The objective I had at the time to start a new journal, which is open access, by the way, open access. Why? I have talked to many senior engineers in industry. They say, we want to lead next generation. How do I do this? Well, you can give a talk, in company offices, but he cannot access many people this way. If you write a paper, it doesn't have to have equations, doesn't have to have a lot of transfer functions for industry engineers. Just explain with graph and chart. What have you done to design, let's say, high voltage transmission line in Colombia, as an example? That goes in this journal, open access, and people can see it without having to buy it. That's what I mean by you want to show how others can benefit from it. Whatever the reason is, there are many ways we can explain this. Now, who is the audience? Who will write the paper and who will read the paper? Let's talk about writing part first. People in academia, of course, Leon just said, write papers. People in corporations, power companies, government, national labs, they all write papers. Also, students write papers for conference publications. And once they go to the conference, get some feedback, then they make the paper better and submit to a journal. So that's the practice for writing audience. Now, this is the key word now. You have to know how your paper is going to be handled. First of all, a reviewer, when he or she gets a paper, is asking certain things in their head. And if you can answer those questions in your paper, the way you're style of writing, you have a higher chance of getting accepted your paper. So first of all, they ask that question, is the content you are presenting is appropriate for this journal in scope and level? What do you mean by this? Suppose we have a transaction called IEEE Transactions on Smart Grid. That's a journal. It has a scope. If you send a paper deals with electric machine design to a journal called Smart Grid, that is not appropriate. That is not in scope. As a result, your paper will be rejected without review. This is very important. So when I talk to my students and they ask me that question, this is the work I've done, what journal should I send it to? I tell them, first of all, go to 3 or 4 journals I recommend to them, 3 or 4 journals. Look at their scope they publish in the journal website, and look at some papers which have been recently published by that journal to see whether your content aligns with what is being published. Very important. Third thing I see here, appropriate scope and level. What do you mean by level? There are many journals of different quality. Like our journal on Smart Grid has an impact factor more than 10, which is fairly high. So, and there could be other journals on Smart Grid type topics, but not a high enough impact factor. Maybe 2 or 3, which is nothing bad with that. Therefore, if your paper is okay paper, but not very strong, then the editor or the reviewer for the IEEE Transactions on Smart Grid may say, your paper is okay, but we have much better papers that we have to deal with. Therefore, we cannot accept your paper. That doesn't mean it's bad work. That means it is not enough competitive for this journal. That's what you mean by level. If that happens, you can go to the next journal, which is other publication, other publishers. It's okay, fine. That's one, the first thing you look at. Then clearly written original material that addresses a new and important problem. The first word is clear. Very, very important. Use simple English. In some cases, if English is not your native language, I would recommend you write it, have a person who is good in English, either an English speaking person or somebody on your faculty or your colleague, to read this paper. He or she will tell you, I'm not following what you're trying to say. It's not very clear to me. Then you ask him or her, what is not clear? He'll sit with you and tell you, you are saying this on paper, page number 4, and I don't know what that means. That's what I mean by written clearly. Okay, now, material, material must be original material. That means it is not something that has been published already. And it has to address a new problem, an important problem. Now, you may not create a paper that is like a Nobel laureate type piece of work. No, I'm not saying that. But you have to highlight what is new in your paper. Now, if you look at the next item, new doesn't mean completely new. It could be extension of previously published work. Extension meaning that extra part that you're talking about is new. That's fine. It must have valid methods and rationale. If you are doing, for example, a paper on electric power load forecasting, your methods of forecasting must be statistical, neural network based, machine learning, fine. Those are valid methods for doing electric power load forecasting. And the rationale meaning, what is the rationale? For example, in our case, I have done a lot of work on load forecasting. Rationale is what affects the electric power load. Simple thing. One is temperature outdoor, humidity, occupancy level, and heat generation inside the building. If you have some equipment in the building producing heat, then that heat has to be removed. You'll need more air conditioning. If you need more air conditioning, your load goes up. So that's the rationale behind load forecasting. Then your paper must not be all text. It must have illustrations, tables, graphs, which support the text. Like we say, picture is worth 1,000 words. So explain your concept, your idea with graph, tables, as much as you can. Finally, the references that you are using in the paper they have submitted must be current and relevant to the subject. Again, if you're writing a paper on to smart grid, focusing on how your digital substation can help reduce outage, smart grid, fine. Therefore, you have to have references which are connected to that concept. You cannot give a reference on electric machines paper, for example. You don't do that. That's what I mean by current and relevant to the subject. Fine. What happens when your paper goes to a journal website? First, paper is seen by the staff, and they do two things. They will pass your paper mechanically through an algorithm called IAuthenticate, which does what I call content match checking. That means we want to see the paper you wrote is somewhat new, number one, and the content is not coming from other sources. Very, very important. Very important. In fact, if you have your own paper, similar content, they'll be okay. But if we run the IAuthenticate algorithm, we see that your paper has 70% match with 10 other papers, not all from the same paper, 5%, 8%, 10%, all adds up to 70%. Then we reject it because your paper is mostly using information cut and paste from other sources. That's number one. Second thing we check, because of past, performance, past behavior, we have a list of banned authors. And I can talk about that later on, what we mean by banned author, how we get a banned author list, but we have a list of banned authors. When the paper comes in, we have a list of all the authors and co-authors of this paper. Each of the name is checked against the banned author list. If any of the authors or co-authors is a banned author, paper will be rejected automatically. It's done. Suppose you pass that test. IAuthenticate says your material is fairly new, not too much copying from other sources, and even the authors are not banned, fine. Then the chief editor-in-chief EIC looks at the paper and sees if the content of the paper is in line with the scope of the journal. If the answer is no, paper goes back to you, rejected. Answer is yes, then he or she will assign your paper to an editor or associate editor who is a specialist in this field. This editor will assign your paper to 5 or more reviewers because IEEE policy requires that any paper that you write must be reviewed by at least 3 people. At least 3 people. So you send to 5 or 7 people, you're hoping at least 3 will return it. That's the idea. So that's done, okay? Then reviewers get it. Reviewers will send their comments after reviewing back to the editor. This step, and now coming backwards. Editor gets the reviews back. He or she will read the reviews, and he has read the paper himself already. Then he makes a judgment, or she makes a judgment about your paper based on his thinking and the reviewer's comments. He or she can make one of the 3 recommendations to the chief editor, EIC. The editor can say, accept, revise and resubmit, or reject. One of the 3. Accept means paper is good enough as it is, can be published. Revise and resubmit means it is a good paper, but it needs some more work. Reviewers have identified some weaknesses. Those must be addressed. Or reject. Reject means done. Then the chief editor gets these comments and makes a final decision, which may be different from what he has seen from the editor. It's possible because he has knowledge. He or she, the EIC, can make the reviewer comment, understand this, and make a decision. Once the chief editor makes a final decision, you'll be informed by email, accept, revise, resubmit, or reject. One of the 3. That's done. Then you can, if you accept, no problem, it's done. You'll be asked to write a copyright form and wait for the paper to be published in that journal. Revise, resubmit, you revise, you make changes, make it better, and submit again and go through the same process. Reject, you give up, or not give up. You can do 2 things. You can look at the reasons it was rejected, and if you see if you can fix it, you have a chance to go back again, but it's a long step. Or you can decide to go to a different journal, which may be more relevant to the work you did. And your decision to go ahead after rejection is influenced by what you read in the reviewer's comments. That's your decision. But that's where we will stop for now for the rejection part. Now, then the question is, why does an editor or reviewer reject a paper? If you understand these things, it'll be helpful for you to make a paper that is effective, has a higher chance of being accepted. First is, paper is rejected because even though you thought the paper is smart grid topic, the reviewer might say, well, it's not really smart grid, it's more like power systems. It's not a good fit for the publication. That's number 1. So that's number 1. Or the paper may have flaws with scientific meaning. Your analysis, your theory, your objects are not lining up. So it has scientific flaws. It could be 2 things. 1, the results could be inconclusive, meaning you said I got 5% error average for load forecasting, but if data doesn't support it, that's inconclusive. Or incorrect interpretation. You'll say that I have gotten the result of 5% or less error by using temperature outside. You may just got lucky for that case study, but that is not correct interpretation, because we know the load in a building doesn't depend only on temperature, depends on occupancy, depends on thermal mass, depends on humidity, all of those. If you don't take those into account, the editor said, the author, the reviewer said, your result may be good, but it is not supporting the physical nature of the problem. Or this doesn't happen often in our business, but happens in many other business. Research is fraudulent, meaning you messed up the data, you make things up, your results don't support the data, and vice versa. So those can be considered serious scientific flaw. Okay, done. It is written poorly, meaning you did a lot of work, good results, but the reviewer has difficulty understanding what you're trying to say. Sorry, written poorly. Next is, it does not address a big enough problem, or it does not advance the scientific field. So this is a judgment issue. What is a big enough problem? That is judgment issues. So I may think this is not big enough. You may think this is big. That's a debate we can get into. But typically what we see, it advances scientific field. What do we mean by this? Again, load forecasting. It's a field of research. I have done a lot of work in different applications using statistical methods, neural network, scientific judgment, and analytic AHP process, many processes. So if I have used, for example, a technique using neural network for load forecasting, which nobody has done before, then I advance the scientific field. I've advanced the field because I've created a good algorithm using a new technique, neural network. That's what we mean by advancing the scientific field. Next is, most of the work was previously published. This could be your work or somebody else's work. This happens if you did not do a thorough enough literature search before writing the paper as to who has done what work in the same field. That gap always exists. Next is, quality is not good enough for this journal. It's not a bad paper, but this is a very highly competitive journal. It has many readers, and they have a much higher standard, meaning a very high impact factor. That may be cause of your paper being rejected. Finally, unfortunately, this happens. Reviewers have misunderstood the article because the way you wrote, the style of writing, the way you presented the data, they could not figure out what was the big contribution your paper made, and gets rejected. So if that happens, I would recommend you read the reviewer comments, and they'll tell you why he or she misunderstood what you said, because you wrote the article yourself, and clean this up, explain it better, and resubmit. Okay, now, what is the structure of the paper? These are the building blocks of a good paper: title, abstract, keywords, introduction, methodology, result, discussion, findings, conclusion, references. For grad students who are writing papers for the first time, second time, I would ask you to keep this 8 item as a checklist. Did I have a good title? Abstract, like this, checklist. And I'll explain the one at a time. Title. Title is important because a paper is discovered in the search engine by title and keywords. They're very important. So you should be able to answer the reader's question. He or she is asking, is this article relevant to me? By reading the title. It must grab the reader's attention. They read the title, yeah, it makes sense, I like to benefit from it. And in a few words, it must be able to explain or define or describe the paper's content. It should be crisp and concise. It should use keywords like load forecasting, the keyword, statistical methods. Avoid jargon. Do not use any abbreviation and shortcut in the paper title. So load forecasting, 2 words. I've seen people say LF technology. What is LF? We don't know. If you see LF in the paper, maybe I figure out. In the title, don't say LF, say load forecasting, as an example. So let me show you 2 examples or 2 cases that I have been working with. I get many papers to review, and I sometimes see the title of the paper is not clear enough or concise enough. Example here, the lower 3-line title, a better approach of managing environmental and energy sustainability via a study of different methods of electric load forecasting. He has the keyword electric load forecasting, different methods. Why do I do load forecasting? Because I want to use appropriate source of electricity to provide the supply. So that's why he is talking about environmental and energy sustainable. It's good words, but it's very complex. It's not concise, and it has about 12, 15 words, too many, too big. I read the paper carefully. I figured out what the author is trying to say. I told the author, please revise your title and call it a human expert-based approach to electrical peak demand management. Done. What, 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6, 7, 8 words. I have been asked this question many times. What is the typical size number of words in a title? I say try to stay between 12 and less, not 15 and 20. Because if your title is so large, it will read like the abstract, not a title. So be careful. 12 words, 10 words, good enough. Okay. Abstract. Abstract is a what I call standalone condensed version of the article. Condensed, right? The whole paper could be 8 pages, could be 3,000 words. How do you explain this in 250 words? This is your training and your skill. You have to do that. So you can use past tense or present tense. It has to have 4 elements. See the 4 boxes on the right 4 boxes. You should say in 1 or 2 sentences what you did. I did load forecasting using neural network. Why you did it? Because historically the papers I've read are doing forecasting using statistical methods, and the errors are higher than what I got using neural network. Fine. Same answer here, 3rd box. How results were useful, important, and move the field forward. Useful because if I can do a algorithm which gives me better results, I can run many of them quickly and do many case studies. That's how the field will be moved forward. Finally, why they're useful and important and move the field forward. Why they're useful? Good question. Today, most of the work is done in a laptop, not a mainframe anymore. I said I have done this paper using neural network-based algorithm. I'm getting 5% error. The other papers in the literature using methods based on statistics, they also get 5% error. But those methods using statistics take long time to run. It takes maybe an hour to run. If you're doing 1 hour ahead load forecasting and takes an hour to converge your result, then it's not useless, right? It takes the time comes up. If you're forecasting at 1 o'clock, what happens at 2 p.m.? If you take 1 hour from 1 p.m. 2 p.m., your result comes at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. already here. So the forecast has no value. Anyway, so what I'm saying here, you may get the same error, 5% you, 5% them. Why is your paper useful then? Because you get the result in 5 minutes, not 1 hour. That's how your paper is more useful, because it can be used for 1 hour ahead load forecasting. It's an example. Okay, that's the abstract. What is the style of abstract? I want you to focus the bottom half of the screen first. So we describe, we comment, we explain. Do not use first person and present tense in the abstract. Do not. So here, the problem is they're using first person we, present tense, and no results. They talk about the paper organization. I'm not reading abstract to see how your paper organized. I'm reading to get some information about whether I can benefit from your paper. Then I read the rest of the paper. So what we can do, look at the, not enough time to read the whole thing, but the upper part is example of these flaws which don't exist. There's no first person, no present tense, and there's some results given. Like it was demonstrated, it was done like objective of this paper was to propose a human expert-based approach to electrical peak demand management. See that? Third person, past tense, and some results. That's the abstract. Okay. Keywords. A paper is found in the search engine using the title and keywords and some abstract related content. So your keywords must be logical must reflect your research, must be applicable in your work, must be searchable. That word should not be an abbreviation or two words combined. Then they are not searchable then. They must be specific to the content, like load forecasting, and appropriate, meaning they are telling the reader, these keywords, what work has been done. Keyword can include like load forecasting, neural network, error band, the applicability in what field, like 24-hour forecast, 1-hour forecast, 7-day forecast. That's what I'm talking about by saying appropriateness. Fine. Then, okay, we have done the title, abstract, keywords. Now the introduction. In the introduction, 1 or 2 pages, not very broad, very specific. We typically write in present tense, introduction. It has 4 boxes, 4 blue boxes. You talk about, in the beginning, generally known information about the topic, prior start research, historical context and history, what happened in other cases, your hypothesis, and an overview of the results. What do you mean hypothesis? Hypothesis is, I believe by using neural network, I can do an algorithm which is as good as what is in the literature, but it'll be faster. Because you know how neural network converges. That's a hypothesis. Then you run the model using neural network methodology and see whether your expectation hypothesis is true or not. That's what you mean by reviewing or overview of results. And then you talk about how the paper is organized, meaning introduction, your methodology, results, discussion, and conclusion. Fine, good. Now, methodology. What do you mean by this? How you set the problem up, problem formulation. What process you have used to solve the problem? Again, neural network, statistical methods, how your result proves or disproves your hypothesis. As I said, your hypothesis was, I can do the forecast for 24-hour ahead time frame much faster than what I see in the literature. That's a hypothesis. You start with that. Then you see, as you do the research, it's not coming out that way. It's still taking a long time. Then go back, tweak the neural network setup, and find some ways that you improve this problem definition and runs faster. Good. Please use illustrations and figures, tables, graphs as much as you can to explain and support your conclusions. Fine. Results and discussion. Results and results. Discussion is discussion. Okay. See here, I have results which are results. Like I'm getting load forecast error for 24-hour forecast at 3 to 5% average. That's results. Discussion, what does it mean? Is the 3 to 5% error good enough for the application you have at hand? If a power company has to do economic dispatch in power system term using your load forecast, then they have to know within 5%, 8% error band is fine enough, good enough. So that's why 5% error is pretty good. That's the discussion part. Now, discussion, you also interpret the results. The results are numbers, right? So what do you mean by results interpretation? Again, I got error 8%, 5%, 4%, 6% for 24 hours. Average them out, I get 4.9%. Interpretation is important. Why? You can average 24 numbers and get an average of 5. You can get that. Because many of the small, many are the 1 or 2 or 0.5, all of that. And 3, 4 of them are like 6 and 8 and 15%. Average is good. But those are the bad situations. If I get 2 or 3 forecasts in a 24-hour basis, like 10% or more, I don't care what the average is, it is not acceptable. Because your engineer in the power company will do economic dispatch based on hour by hour numbers. You get hour 1, you get 2%, hour 3, 4%, hour 5, 12%. The 12% is not acceptable for them. So that's why you have to interpret, why did I get 12%? Go back, look at that. And if you can explain it, maybe because it rained suddenly, that's why the load dropped. I didn't expect that. Explain that. Otherwise, it's not useful for the engineer. Conclusion. What it means, what results, what research has been done, how the research relates to the problem that I introduced in the beginning. In the conclusion, revisit key points in each section, key points in results, discussions, problem formulation, decide that. And then provide benefits and shortcomings of the solution presented. What do you mean by benefit and shortcoming? Benefit could be it runs in 5 minutes, easily usable. Shortcoming could be you need a lot of data to make it work, and that data preparation takes time. And then research and methodology. You have a neural network methodology, which is fine, define it. But finally, I'm saying at the bottom of the screen, suggest future areas of research. Very important. We cannot expect you, the author, to solve the world's problem in one paper. It's not possible. So you will always say, I have done this much work, results look good, but I could have done more. But I cannot do all this work in one paper. It does two things. It lets the reviewer understand you have a limitation and you accept it. And more importantly, if you define future research areas from your paper, somebody reading this paper, could be a student doing PhD, can find a topic they can focus on for their research, valuable from that viewpoint as well. References, simple. It must be relevant to your work. People ask me, how many references should I put in? I say typically 30 or less, not 100. It's too many. But the point is, the references should be relevant to your work, not just you put 30 papers because you found 30 papers in a literature search. You must put the author's name, article title, publication name, publisher, year published, volume and page number in the reference citation. This is new now, DOI, Digital Object Identifier. What's happening today in the age of internet, papers are accepted by a journal and they're putting the paper on their website before it goes to a issue for a printed version. And that may take 6 extra months to go to a printed version. So paper is now made public. We do not know the journal volume it will be going to. We don't know the issue volume, issue of the volume. We don't even know the page number yet. What they do as a result, they assign a DOI number for your paper, which stays with it forever. So that means a paper can be cited by journal citation or by DOI. That's what is very important. Okay. So then the question is, who should be on the author's list? Paper is written by a group of people in most cases because they have done some research. They have a report from the research that was done. A project may have many people, right? Many engineers working on a project. So that project has many aspects. You are using one aspect of that project to write this paper. Typically, a project will generate multiple papers. So that's fun. So the report may have many authors, including the lead authors. All the engineers who worked on the project, their name will be published with the report. And a paper is different. Paper, who is the author? The word author means he or she wrote something in this paper. That's author, right? So I've said here on the right-hand side, this third sentence, include any and all who have contributed to the writing of the paper. Underline, writing of the paper. So if they did not write anything for the paper, their name should not be there. Yes, they may have helped you to understand the problem. They've given you some data. For that reason, their name can be acknowledged, but they cannot be an author. There's a difference. Okay, so acknowledge them, but no author. No author. It's not here. Done. Okay. Now let's talk about ethics issues in a paper. Ethics means misconduct. One is conflict of interest. Many cases in our business, a project is funded by a company or some either company or government labs or the government sources. If you are talking in the paper about how good the company's funding helped you to get your research done and make the company look good, don't do that. Yes, you will acknowledge the work presented in this paper was possible through a grant from this company or this agency. That's fine, but do not go beyond that. It is not a big thing in our business, but medical business, very important, because they do research with outside funding. Manufacturers fund research in universities, medical research, and they get some results which are good, and they say, well, because of the company has a good drug, I got good results. Don't talk like this, number one. That's what we call conflict of interest. Next, plagiarism. Copying another person's work, word for word, without proper citation. Don't do that. Missing author attribution. What does it mean? You must attribute if you are using somebody else's ideas in an article. Even if you do not quote his or her paper, but you have a discussion with somebody, he or she told you, yes, you're running neural network, you choose your data set in the following way, you have a better chance of converging. That's an idea somebody has given you. Somehow you should acknowledge that in the acknowledgement part, even though you don't have paper to cite in this case. Fine. Therefore, what you should do, ethical publishing, let's focus on plagiarism first. Cite and separate any verbatim copies of materials. What do you mean by that? You're allowed to copy maybe few sentences from another paper, put that in within quotation mark. That may help you to explain your technique. That's fine. I just said that, credit any ideas from other sources. Ideas. Last is make yourself familiar with IEEE policies. On the right-hand side is a URL. Follow that, get some answers for yourself. Okay? Duplication, redundancies, and multiple submissions. Let's focus on multiple submissions first. An author, maybe a PhD student, wrote a paper, it's pretty good, and he or she knows it takes 6 months to a year to get an answer from a journal. Rather than waiting that long, he or she decides to send the same paper to 3 journals, same paper, hoping somebody will come back quicker. And if one journal says accept, he or tell the other 2 journals, well, I got acceptance from this place, please for the 2 journals, please don't review anymore. I want to withdraw this from your journal. You can say that, but think about this, how the 2 journals feel about this. They have taken your paper, assigned an editor, assigned reviewers going on. So all the work they have done for you is wasted if you tell them, I'm withdrawing the paper. So do not do that. Go step by step, serial, not parallel. Meaning one submit, is rejected. I said all day before already what to do if it is rejected. So follow that. Do not submit at the same time to multiple places. Duplication of your own work. You have a conference paper, you will take that conference paper and make it into a journal paper. IEEE policy is at least 40% content must be new. We accept the fact the students submit a paper, present a paper at a conference, comes back, improves it, and then resubmits to a journal, which is fine, but you must have 40% new content, IEEE policy. Redundancy, meaning you are saying same things multiple times about forecast error, all that. So avoid that part. That's ethical publishing. Where to publish? IEEE has 3 kinds of journals. One is traditional journal, which is your smart grid transactions, power system transactions, power delivery transactions, and like they are all closed, meaning you submit the paper, gets reviewed, gets accepted, publication comes out, then a library or your university or company has to buy that journal to read the paper. That's traditional. Second is open access, where when your paper is accepted, you're given a choice. Do you want to make your paper open access? If you say yes, pay a fee. Whatever fee the journal charges, you got to pay that. Once you are done, paper is published online and then in print, and it is not closed. You can find that on Google search, or you can find it from other sources. Third is hybrid. That means it has both options. Most articles are traditional, number one. Some are open because authors of those papers in that journal have said, we'll pay you the required fee, make it open. That's the three ways we do this. Now, open access publication. So what does it mean? That means I have the option here. Look at this. This IEEE has a journal called IEEE Access. That journal covers all fields of IEEE, all fields of IEEE. So that's one. And you can submit there. There's a fee, no problem. I am saying is this one, I talked about this before. This is open access journal for power and energy done by USPES. It just launched this year. It is charging you a fee of $1,350. And if it is not possible for you to pay that fee, we subsidize or give a lower fee if the authors are from a developing country, not able to pay that much fee, we'll give you that option. So again, write to the editor that, yes, I'm glad paper is accepted. I want open access, but I cannot pay because of university limitations. I can pay, pick a number, $500, something like this. That works. Then we have option two. In the IEEE Access Journal, I just mentioned to you, this one, we have a section that we assigned to us, to PES. That in that section, all the papers are power related. So here it is again started January this year. It charged a little bit more money, $1,750, not $1,350. Again, up to you what you want to pay. That's the second option for you. Impact factor. This number is given by Thomson Reuters publication house that is widely used, but sometimes you feel impact factor is not the only way I can judge a journal's reputation. One reason is it takes 4 years after launching for a journal to get the impact factor. So what do we do in those 4 years? If nobody publishes in the first 4 years, the journal doesn't exist. So then what I tell my students, in a new journal, but how known is the editor, chief editor, and is a journal publishing papers in our field? That's community involvement. And also look at editor board. So if you have a high quality journal, you expect well-known people will be part of the journal board. Then it's fine. Wait for the impact factor. Other ways we can judge a journal's value is download. Download means if a paper in a new journal is heavily downloaded, what does it mean? That means people like the work and they find value in that work. So that's good. Also, we have noticed in patent citations, IEEE papers are heavily referenced. That means the work presented in IEEE papers are searched by patent lawyers to see the new patent application content, is it matching the work that is being tested in a patent application? Okay, good. So what is next? Follow-up steps. Summarizing how you do the writing part. Again, I'm talking about the real world application in a lab. Many students work on a project. So decide by discussion among your peers who will do what. Somebody will do a literature search. Somebody will do experimental model. Somebody will get the model experiment results and discuss. Somebody will do the conclusions. And then you have a team of people who will collect all the components, prepare the draft, give it to your professor, and he or she will make comments. Once comments are done, you take those comments into account, then you produce the final copy. So this is done. This is my lecture. I want to take just a minute or two to talk about my impression about IEEE today and what I like to do as a president of IEEE if I get elected. First of all, because of today's corona effect, global, we are doing things different, like this webinar. If we had not done COVID-19, I'd probably go there and give you face-to-face. So we call it, this business today is new normal. Yes, we will get out of coronavirus. We'll have a new normal. We'll be looking different. What will happen? We'll do more collaboration, more cooperation, and more community spirit. So people in Colombia will work with people in the US, vice versa, and have more interaction. For that to happen, we have to make IEEE broader, meaning include people from different countries, different groups, different disciplines, which is fine. So we don't care where you work, because we can talk to you over the internet. For that to be practical, we must get participation for volunteers like you globally, not just North America, Latin America, Asia, Europe, Africa, plus North America, of course. So we want to bring technologists and academics from all over the world to be under IEEE umbrella. This is very important that I have noticed myself. I visit many countries. I see the number of senior members and IEEE fellows in regions 8, 9, and 10. 9 is you, Latin America. There are fewer than senior members and fellows in North America, for example, US and Canada. That's not fair. So I like to, and people do not become senior members because they fail. No, they don't even apply. People think in industry special is a very difficult thing to do. It's not difficult. You apply yourself. If you have an experience of 10 years, if you got a BA, bachelor degree in electrical engineering, you need 5 more years. Not a big deal. If you master's degree, you need like 3 more years. That's not difficult. Apply, you need 3 other senior members or fellows to be your references. You have to know people like this. What I have done in PES, I formed a committee where the committee will have a database of senior members. And if somebody wants to apply for senior member, they go to database and get some name. It's done. Fellows are more difficult, of course. Similarly, I have formed a fellow nomination committee in PES. The committee's job is to review fellow nomination packages before they're submitted to IEEE and make improvements. As a result, things get better. So this is done. My last slide. I'm putting this slide just to make sure you have my email address, because we'll have Q&A now. You may not have enough time today to answer all the questions. If you have a question that I could not answer today, please email me. I'll answer that. Again, I have been PES president. I've been IEEE board. I've done a lot of work for PES. That's fine. You can see that. I'm giving you at the bottom of the screen my website, which you can look at later on. And I will put this paper on the website as well, so that you can have a look if you like. So I'm done. I'm going to stop sharing, Leon, and you can take over and run the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Saifur. Very informative. A lot of questions we have here, so I will go ahead and ask several of them that were not resolved by you already, because some of them you, in the course of the talk, answered them indirectly.
Okay.
One of them, I'll go for chronologically. Someone asked about the open access journals compared to green open access. If there are journals that accept both options, and which one is easier to get accepted?
Well, depends. I have seen in other countries, not IEEE, other countries, companies sponsor journals. That means company will pay the open access fee, not the author. But because company pays the fee, it is easier, of course, right? You're not paying anything. The company will pay the fee for not everybody's sound. So then it is a competition, right?
Okay.
So only top ones get accepted. So if you have the money to pay, I say pay, then you have a better chance to being accepted.
Okay. Get it. Thank you. There's another one. When if the paper subject is not very much aligned with the scope of the journal, when does it get rejected? At the beginning, or it gets sent to the editor or to the reviewers, and they make the decision about the...
No, it is rejected upfront.
Okay.
EIC chief editor looked at it without relevance, he'll reject right there without wasting time for the reviews.
Great.
Next
Thank
one.
you. Yeah. There's another one actually very related to the industry members here. I get a lot of them from my fellow colleagues. It's, can you submit a paper that is not necessarily research based, more like experiences in the field, in the construction substation or something in that order, and in which kind of transactions or journals are more...
Right. So this is why I started the journal I talked about, open access journal for power energy. I started that 6-7 years ago for that reason. I said industry people are doing real work, practical work. They may not have equations and algorithms, fine. So they kept this journal. I said to the editor when I started that journal, do not reject because it has no equations. Do not reject it.
Yeah.
If it has no equation, this is better to me. No equation is better than equation. The problem is it has open access is a fee.
Yep.
To publish. We have done many studies in the US. Typically, companies don't mind paying the $1,000 fee because then two things happen. Company's name goes up and company's work is visible globally now. So it's done that. But in case, as I said already, if you cannot pay the fee, paper accepted, apply to the chief editor that we cannot pay $1,300. Can you give us a lower fee? And they'll usually help you out. Typically, they will.
Okay, thank you. Related to that, also a lot of practitioners ask me about how much of the paper has to have reference on it, because also practitioners get less interested in literature review and these kind of things. So what is a good balance when you're not much of a researcher?
That's a very good question. I would say if you got even 5 references, it's fine. The reason I'm saying that, we said already, it must be something new, right? New, something not done before. So how do you claim it is new unless you can say, I know this work has been done and mine is different. For that reason, you need some references. Now, hold on, reference doesn't mean published paper. It could be citation from another source. I've seen myself. I can say personal communication with Ramon Leon on 24th of August 2019. It's okay, accept it.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. The other one is in the case of using figures from other papers, it's necessary to put the author, or it's necessary to ask the author for approbation to use that figure in your work.
Right. Figure, once it is published by a journal, belongs to the journal, not the author, belongs to the journal. They have the copyright.
Okay.
So I tell my students, do not copy the figure. It takes a lot of, you can get it, as you said, you can go to the author, get permission, it's possible. It's a long time. Possible. I said, don't do that. Redraw the figure looking at it, so it is your figure.
Okay, understood.
Redraw that.
Okay, let me check on the list. We are almost finishing. Well, there's an interesting question, a little bit far from the topic, but someone asked about the top trending topics the last year related to clean energy transition, integration, renewables, those kind of things.
Right.
What are the hot topics right now on that? Do you have any?
Yeah, it depends on what journal you're talking about. If you have a journal in our society, PES, on transactions on sustainable energy. The way I started 7-8 years ago now. Sustainable energy meaning renewable. What's the hot topic? Hot topic now in that field of sustainable energy is integration to the grid. Because if you have a solar field which is serving the distribution network, it has high oscillatory variability on a cloudy day. So what do you do so that the grid can accept that, but not create voltage fluctuations? So what we have done, I've done that work in my lab. I play with the inverter. So inverter has some capacitance built in, some inverters today has capacitance built in. So when you have that smart inverter, it will absorb some oscillation because of capacitance built in. And if supply too high, you will chop it, not sell all the power to the distribution network. If you have an experiment and done that work today, it is publishable work.
Okay.
As an example.
Great, thank you. We are getting to the last two questions. One of them, it's well, you got the list of the different parts of the paper structure. Someone asked what could be an interesting percentage or a good percentage of each of the topics for the whole paper. Is there something like a metric for that, or?
No, I'm reading the question. I can read the question here. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So we have abstract, introduction, methodology, results discussion, all that. So the biggest important part in a paper is the methodology and results and discussion. Biggest part. That's the core of it. You're writing introduction based on that core. Abstract came from that core ideas. Conclusion came from the core. This new. The new stuff is the methodology and the results and discussion. New stuff. Rest is packaging, literally packaging.
Great, thank you.
That part.
Well, I guess you are able to read the last one, and that last one is one that is a really huge. The word is huge, not big. Huge challenge for us here in Region 9, and I guess in somewhere else, because we are developing countries with a lot of fluctuations between the US dollar and our national currencies. And I get this from all my colleagues in the company, is if they put together a Netflix subscription or an IEEE subscription, always Netflix wins.
Right.
So it's related to why the fees are so high, and there's something that can be done for order to get more access, even for junior engineers. That for them is a really big value proposition to pay for it, and also for the fees for open access is kind of like the same.
The two issues are separate. Let me take one at a time.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I have been fighting this issue for last 10 years. I come from a developed. I was born in Bangladesh. More poor than Colombia. I have the same issue I hear from them all the time. What I've done, I have a new example in IEEE now called Corporate Engagement Program. I've done that in China, India, and Africa, all done. What is that means? If you work for a company, your salary is not high enough to pay IEEE dues, expensive IEEE dues.
Yeah.
That's fine. I understand that. What we have done, we've told the company management, you have a company, like I did work in Kenya, Africa. The engineers in Kenya make small amount of salary compared to here, of course. So if we want to charge them $150 for annual dues, is part of their 1 week salary. It's a big number for them. Cannot do that. On the other hand, the company Kenya Power and Light is $100 million budget. For them, $10,000 nothing. It's a noise. For $10,000, they can buy 100 membership.
Yep.
So I told the company management, buy the membership for your engineers, 100 of them, pay us $10,000, and you're done. I've done in China, India, even US today, I've done that program. So I would recommend, we can talk offline later on, that we have a policy for IEEE PES that we, and you know Santiago Leon.
Yeah, of course.
He knows this very well. Talk with him. We can have a program.
Actually, we are doing that in our company. In our company, we're doing that. But there are a lot of small companies that also have faced the same struggle, but still, it's something that I guess can get worked with probably reducing the number of engineers to be able to qualify of a.
Exactly.
But still, I guess the IEEE fee is sometimes is the one that are pushing the price higher than just the PES. The PES fee, the reduced price for developing countries is okay, but the IEEE fee, it's
for low
like the barrier.
Countries like Colombia, IEEE fee is less. I think $81,
Yeah.
something like this.
Yeah. It's 81, yeah, and PES is
30.
Is 30, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
We need to
but that's it. The other is the open access. I guess was the question also from the
open access. I have addressed already. I know for some people difficult to pay $1,300. It's simple, but don't let you stop there. Write the paper, get accepted. Don't look at the fee first. Don't look at that. Forget the fee.
Okay.
When they bill you for 1,300, tell them I'm from Colombia. We have economic difficulties. I would like you to make it. Give a number. I pay $200. Pick a number. $500. Keep a number. See what happens.
Yeah. Okay. Great. That's good counseling.
Okay. So I come from a developing country myself. I have seen the problem from both sides, US and Bangladesh and India, Bangladesh side, and I can really understand why we do this. And there is one reason here, Ramon, I'm running for president for that reason. And it changed thinking in IEEE. You have to think like you and me thinking now. Many people don't even think that. Well, $100 not a big deal. It's a big deal. Your salary is not.
Yeah, it is.
Salary is 10K, not 100K.
Exactly. It is like that. But thank you very much, Saifur, for taking the time to talk to us this evening. Very informative. A lot of things that we wanted to know about how to write a paper. I'm going to switch to Spanish just to close the.
Sure.
Y muchas gracias a todos por su participación. La verdad, las preguntas estuvieron muy buenas. La idea es continuar trabajando juntos. Los que no sean miembros de IEEE y de PES, los invitamos a mirar en nuestra página web cómo hacerse miembro, sobre todo para los estudiantes, que hay unas tarifas muy buenas. Y como lo escucharon con Saifur, tenemos un programa para las compañías, para que las compañías puedan acceder a que sus ingenieros puedan hacer parte de IEEE y la compañía pueda pagar los costos de inscripción. Es algo que se pueden comunicar conmigo, con Felipe o con las personas de IEEE PES en su país. Les agradecemos mucho, Saifur. Thank you very much for everything. Y no olviden votar por Saifur, que también es alguien de nuestra sociedad de PES que está participando para ser presidente de todo IEEE y sería muy interesante para nosotros como sociedad. Saifur, at the end I did a little bit of publicity of your candidacy to IEEE.
One final thing, I have posted the PDF file of this lecture already on my website already.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much.
srahman.org. Go there. I give webinars all over the world now. This in Colombia is listed there, and you can download the PDF file if you want to. Tell your colleagues.
Okay, great. We'll do that.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much y muchas gracias a todos. Muy buenas noches. Hasta luego. Bye bye.